Africans were disadvantaged. And with that disadvantage, we had institutions that were created in the past, and they marginalized Africa. So when we look at the IMF, the World Bank, and all the UN institutions, you would find that Africa has no voice because of that historical fact. The main organs that make the most important decisions, the G20 and many other platforms on the global stage, have, for a long time, excluded Africa. And so Africa remains behind in many of the areas, but we know very well that Africa today should be sitting on the table with all the decision makers, where the big decisions are made that affect the continent. There are many things that Africans should do. The first thing is to shed off that colonial mindset. There are many Africans who still think that other people are superior to them. But, so that is a mindset, and it's a mindset that still affects many black people. It is a mindset that we need to shed off and see ourselves as being equal with any other human beings on the planet. Now, the second thing that we need to do is actually to reform some of the institutions that have sustained this kind of marginalization. I've already mentioned a few of them, and these institutions need to be reformed to reflect the African representation. When Africa is not represented, then the big issues that face Africans will never come to the fore, and Africa will remain behind. We know that today, Africa is no longer the dark continent. Right now, I think when we look at the statistics, we know Africa is having the biggest youth population, the biggest labor force, and we call it the labor force of the future, because populations in the West are now aging, and there's no young population to take over the labor market. And Africa now provides a stock of labor that can actually fuel growth that we are seeing. So we see Africa changing, and we think that even with the digital revolution, for us, for instance, in Kenya, we came up with the M-Pesa product, which has revolutionized the way money is exchanged. And that has to cut across even how money is handled globally. We know very well that dollarization has penalized African countries, because for us in Kenya, if we want to trade with Ethiopia or with Uganda, we have to go and get a US dollar and do our transaction in a foreign currency. Why can't we just exchange the Kenya shilling with the Ethiopian birr, and we do our business as Africans? Because we know that we share common boundaries, but these boundaries are still also colonial. We were given boundaries which we didn't have room to decide whether we need them or not, but they were imposed on us. So things like dollarization and so forth, they are things that I think Africans are now feeling they are being penalized. When we go to the global markets to borrow, we know very well that the sovereign credit ratings have disadvantaged African countries, because every time African countries are seen to be too risky to give money. And so we continue being marginalized, even in the global financial space.